Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 559 of Constructive Criticism. I'm your host, Easy. I'm joined by my co-host, Abe Stein.
Hello.
And the man who let the zebra out in Tennessee, Mason Clark.
Hey, how you doing?
I gotta ask. I know it's like a huge national story, but like, what is it like locally?
I have no idea what you've been talking about. I thought you were making something up.
I also had no idea what you were talking about. The idea that a zebra being on the loose, which is now I'm just finding out what you were referring to, is national news, is crazy.
Okay, so one of the biggest stories this week is that somebody had a pet zebra, and it got loose in Tennessee, and went ham. Like, it went like, nobody could catch it, and eventually they airlifted it back into its, like, via helicopter, back into its enclosure. And it's like the Tennessee zebra. So Mason, I just assumed that you did it. Like, you just, obviously, if there's anybody who's going to let a zebra out, it's you.
No. I actually believe zebras should be all enclosed encampments. Like, they can't get out, up in their cages. That's actually a big belief of mine.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair. I think Devonair said that he was just trying to get back to Africa and he couldn't find his way.
That's definitely possible. Definitely possible. That's Spencer's wife, for those at home who don't know. So
I'm just gonna say, and famously so, ain't nobody looking at that dang zebra.
One of the best memes of all time. I'll tell you what's not one of the best memes of all time, though. Our history with this episode, Spencer. Let them know what's up.
Yeah, we're doing the triple training grounds. This is, each of us is going to bring something little that we maybe couldn't fit into a whole episode, but that we each feel passionately about to, like, help you improve at Magic. So rather than an individual training grounds where we all dive into one thing, we're each going to dive into our own thing. And Mason, we're going to start with you. What is your triple training ground?
Yeah, so this is one that's been coming up a lot recently in coaching, and I wanted to talk about, which is sort of this idea of, I can't VOD review on my own because am maybe not good enough to, like, solve all the problems. I don't have enough information maybe to figure out what happened in this game, right? There's just too many unknown cards in hand. I can't really solve this game and figure out how I'm supposed to have won this game. And what I've been trying to get across people and tell them is the goal of, your VOD review is not to figure out how you should have won every game and stuff like that. It is to go back and reflect and have real examples to work on your critical thinking when it comes to Magic and try and take takeaways. And a great takeaway from a simple VOD review, even if there's something you could do, but you maybe missequence your lands, is I should work on sequencing my lands better. That is a very simple thing to do of, like, yeah, maybe I played this Surveil land on turn 2 when I, could have done something else that actually impacted the board. I'm not even sure why I did that. I can't think of a good reason. I should be more mindful about my mana. That can be a huge moment, and just taking little things and running with those is fine. If you can't solve every problem on the VOD review and come to the conclusion, that's fine and normal. Sometimes there aren't, and sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, but that shouldn't stop you from trying to get in there and try and take lessons and takeaways. Even if it isn't, some earth-shattering major leap forward in your improvement in Magic that VOD review gives you, even just a little micro step forward can be very helpful. And so I wrote a couple things really quickly. So maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I don't even know what to do besides what Mason said there. A couple things I wrote down. If you all have anything you want to add here, I'd love to hear it. But basically, did I need to use that removal spell? Right? Could I have held it? That's a great question to ask, especially early on in a game. Did I have to kill that Ocelot Pride? Could my creatures have blocked it? Should I have attacked last turn? Right? / should I be attacking this turn? Was that play one I could reasonably expect? If your opponent makes a play that maybe surprised you in game, is that something that deck normally does? That's something that is that a card this deck normally plays? Should you have been able to reasonably come to the conclusion that this could happen to you? If so, why did we not think about that? Maybe start thinking about our process there. And then, how was my mulliganing? How was my sideboarding? Reviewing that can be great. And kind of the last one's maybe a little bit more nebulous is, did I play my spells at the correct time to maximize their efficiency, right? Should I have attacked first? Should I have played this land first? Should I have cast my spell, then play my land? basically those little things. That's a bit more nebulous. It's a big, broader picture, but those are just some little examples.
I think something you said like the very beginning is something that because we're sponsored by Untapped.gg, the CCMTG account has free VOD, just like recording for Arena. And I utilized that a few weeks ago. And one of the things that I was looking at was my sequencing. And not just like the sequencing of my mana, but like, why did I play that one drop versus activate that ability versus, whatever I could have done. And the use of my mana is something that I think that sometimes we get into like heuristic views of use all your mana every turn is like the first thing you should do. But I think that something that like this standard and honestly this modern format teaches you is that you should just get the most out of your turn. And sequencing is like a huge part of that. And I think that if you watch your games back, you will find a lot of times where maybe you sequence something because of a heuristic that you should have probably broken.
I also want to just chime in, Mason. I think your last point there of like, did I cast this spell at the right time, or like, did I do this, take this game action, even if it was maybe the right game action, like from a high level, did I optimize my usage of that? I think right now in standard, obviously I'm deep in Pro Tour preparation right now, so it's top of mind. But the prowess deck I think asks a lot of questions, and I've had a lot of experience now of kind of going over VODs and plans and what maybe could have been done differently or what the right play was in a spot in a deck where like, okay, this was a good exchange that I took, but did I take it at the right time? Because if I took it on, my opponent's turn, maybe I would have gotten them to commit another spell or another prowess trigger, or maybe gotten a better card out of them if I was like a monk token, or a Drake Hatcher off the board if I'm playing a mirror match. Or, was I supposed to even cast this turn, right? Like, should I have held it for another 2 or 3 turns down the line until I'm having a bigger turn, to maximize the impact of the card? And that question there, I think, is one that is a hard one to answer. But when you really think about all of the options for all of the plays that you made, I think it just makes for a better VOD review, right? Like a lot of what we're conditioned to do from, playing and improving is trying to eliminate, the plays that we think are wrong from our field of vision to focus on the ones that we're kind of weighing between as being correct. But I think when you have all of the time in the world and you are just doing a review, so you're not under any sort of time pressure and the goal is to improve, it's the best time possible to ask yourself all of the questions of like, okay, what if I didn't cast this turn? What if I cast the next turn, or the turn after that, or was waiting for a different exchange to come up, right? Like, maybe I didn't want to just hold my spell because I felt like I should be digging for something, but that cantrip could be better down the line, or what have you. So yeah, just something I wanted to add there, as I've been doing more reviews, and also just more reviews of drafts as well. Like, there's so much there to consider and so many decisions that you yourself are going to have already filtered out in your head, that it's important to make sure you don't get fixated on that and take the opportunity to expand that.
I think that something that's really interesting about this topic, when we had Nathan on, I don't know if you guys remember, but he talked about kind of the importance of this. So it's really funny that it comes up so much for you in coaching, Mason, because I mean, what didn't he say that like he thought that at a certain point, like it should be, didn't he say like almost 80% of your time should be doing this?
Yeah, no, he does, and it's something that I've been preaching, coach then, and felt very good to hear at the moment. Of like, I wasn't saying 80% to clients. I sort of say like your VOD review, like if you're never done it before, it should be like 60-40 playing, reviewing, maybe even 70-30 if you're a little unsure, and then get to the point where eventually it's 50-50. We're playing and then we're reviewing a game from a couple days ago, or a couple, however long ago it is, and sort of having this constant thing going of sort of constantly play a little, review a little, think, do through it. And it's super helpful. And if you're not reviewing your games, I really don't think you're doing your best bet to succeed at Magic at like a high level. Like you could be doing lots of things, but that's one of the number one things you could do to help yourself improve. It is just as helpful, if not more helpful, than playing games, especially if you have a friend you can talk to, but even solo. You should definitely be doing this. And there's lots of ways to do it. I know a lot of people feel like, oh, Mick goes broken, I can't do it now. Or, oh, I don't want to pay for a premium service. Download OBS. It's free. Record your screen. Go back and watch it. Upload. A thing I've done multiple times is I've recorded my own gameplay and I just upload it privately on my YouTube channel and have that for myself, but also to share with friends. If someone's like, hey, I want to see like what's going on with this deck, I can share and be like, here is my deck, or here's some gameplay of me playing it, blah, blah, blah. And then now they get to look over that and they can also, maybe like, oh, I think you should have done X or Y, So VOD review is one of the most important things. And if you're feeling like you're hitting a wall, you should definitely just start doing it. Even if you're struggling, I promise you it will be very, very helpful.
I love that. Mine is next. We're going to talk about taking stock in yourself. And we're going to go with a little time machine, Abe. Episode 354. That is over 200 episodes. I think you've been on the show for 4 years, Abe. 4 years. I know you can believe it. That was the Fearless Magic Inventory episode, if you remember. And one of the things that we do a lot on the show is we talk about kind of like the idea of always improving, of the idea of introspective thinking. And I think that there are things that you need to do in order to do this. And a huge part of improving is kind of removing yourself from the exact moment and taking a step back and actually looking at what's happening. I have wrote down some things that I think that you should be able to ask yourself as you look inward. And I just want to kind of go like, what are your goals? How's my gameplay? How's my process? How is my prep? And are my fundamentals still sound? One of the things that I do for coaching, I actually just sent one yesterday, is my first coaching session is I have people fill out a form. And then we talk about the form of these things. And I think that too often we don't take a step back and look at where we're at now and what we've worked on last, what our process looks like. And I think it's a huge part of being always improving. These are just the type of questions that you have to ask yourself to even take a next step. Like, you had a plateau, and if you're not doing these things, you're not asking these questions, you're gonna stay there. Like, you're gonna stay stagnant. And I think removing yourself from your games, I think, Abe, you kind of touched on that in the last segment of like literally taking yourself out of the moment and putting yourself into what can I be doing different? What does this look like from this perspective? And I think that taking a moment to take stock in yourself is kind of really important. And when you don't do it, it can be this feeling of stagnation and plateauing. But I also think that people think that this is like got to be this like very intense process. I've done this at work, for example, where it's just a car ride home, where like I just have a conversation with myself in the car on the ride home, or I just am laying in bed and I open up a notes doc and I write down some of these things. And it doesn't have to be this intense process, but if you don't do this, then how do you know where you're at? And I don't know. It's a little bit nebulous, but I hope that if you get something out of this part of this podcast, that you're able to take 10 minutes to do this.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that you mentioned the Fearless Magic Inventory episode, because my training grounds is actually building on, and something I've been working on that was still an outstanding item where I knew I could improve from that Fearless Magic Inventory 4 years ago, which is bluffing. and structuring and building and understanding and having a framework to make sure that I know what I'm accomplishing with a bluff and how to like look out for the opportunity for it. And I really what has started to click for me, especially after a match that I played. And this is typically how it goes for me. Is like over the last few years, I've definitely played games where I've like had the opportunity and taken the opportunity to bluff. I'm getting better at it. But a lot of it has come down to like I played a match recently at the RC in Hartford against Tariq Patel, where I realized that I was bluffing him, and the only way I could win was through bluffing him, and it gave me a lot of opportunity in the game that we were playing, because I was able to think counterfactually about all of the things that you know my opponent was thinking about, like what if I did or didn't have it, and also I knew how that would impact my own plays to know if I could sell or not sell a bluff. So let me kind of rewind here as far as counterfactual thinking, because that's the kind of baseline building block that I really want to focus in and talk about, because I think it's a very important thing if you're not doing this already, and most people do. I mean, it's a really simple idea. Counterfactual thinking at its core is just thinking about what if something was another way, right? If all things are the same except for this one thing, how is then everything different afterwards? So a lot of times, writing a VOD review, you're probably asking yourself, okay, what if I didn't make this play, or what if I did make this play, or what if my opponent had this card or didn't have this card? And you're kind of evaluating on these yes or no matrices that you're kind of talking about. In a situation, be it, did I play that spell? Should I play that spell? Do they have it? Do they not? And when it comes to bluffing, the important thing is understanding, like, are you representing, do I have this card or do I not have this card? And what is the exchange if I do or if I don't, right? A great example of this is like if I'm attacking, and this happened a lot in standard at some various points, but like if I have Soulscar Mage and I'm attacking Soulscar Mage into a 4/4, is my opponent going to block, right? The question there is like, do I have shock? Everyone knows there's going to be shocks in my deck. If they block their 4/4 and I shock it, I'm going to get to eat their 4/4. If they don't block and I have shock, I'm probably not going to shock their 4/4. They just take the point of damage. But if I don't have it, then and they block, they'd get to eat my creature, right? The risk there of their larger creature probably outweighs it. So it's a bluff that, I think it goes around at times of like, really good Monastery Swiftspear players, really good red players, like they're just always attacking and they know that their opponent, like, when their opponent would or wouldn't block. That really comes from if you take all of the, oh, I read them out of it, down to like, can my opponent afford to or not afford to respect or not respect this play that I'm representing, right? What is it that occurs for my opponent if I have this card, and how would I play if I have this card compared to how would I play if I didn't? And if it's the same or different, what are the outcomes there? And so if we're doing this kind of evaluation when our opponents are making plays, and then making it with the consideration of what is my opponent thinking, right? We think a lot about, oh, well, if they have the kill spell for my creature, then I'm getting blown out for casting my aura or my own pump spell, right? If I cast Monstrous Rage and they have Flood Maw, then I'm out the card and I'm out the combat and I'm set back. But when we know that our opponents are thinking about those things, and you have an opponent in front of you who is thinking on that level, it allows you to start to play the sub game of, can I make them think that I have this? Is there advantage to be gained because I know that they have to respect this because everything else has said I do or don't have this? And that's where it really, builds on that level I'm currently working on myself of, how am I using this knowledge to start to structure bluffs for myself, right? How am I evaluating, the board state and the game state, and thinking through all of the problems that are encountering, the plays that are in front of me of what does it look like if I do, or what does it look like if I don't? And for my opponent, what does it look like if I do, and what does it look like if I don't? And is it worth the risk, right? What is the outcome in all those scenarios? So I think at the end of it, what really matters most in terms of like counterfactual thinking, this idea of evaluating your decisions based on what the outcomes are, and not just looking backward, but looking forward to, if I do this, maybe I'm taking a risk, but is that risk going to pay off? It starts to open up plays in games where you're able to win or gain advantage where you might not have been able to if everyone knew everyone's cards, right? The example I gave in the match against Tarek, where I was able to leverage a bluff, the hand I kept was like Corey Steelcutter, some lands and some Monastery Swiss Spears, and just based on the way that I played the game and what I kept on thinking about every turn as I was playing my lands, of like, what can I represent? Because I drew like 4 lands in a row. I had no plays. I had no spells. I got very fortunate that the game was even competitive, because if my opponent knew I just had all lands and was doing nothing on purpose, like nothing, I had no option and not on purpose, they would have just cast all their spells and killed me, run me over. That game I wound up losing, but every turn up until maybe the last one, I was pretty certain that a chain of cantrips, a single stock up, there were just so many draws in my deck that were live to put me back into that game, just based on the back of the fact that every turn I was making plays and posturing in a way that still sold an idea that my hand could have something, right? It could be Spell Pierce, Flood Maw, Burst Lightning, right? And a land, right? There were still things in my range that I was able to sell Tarek on that he couldn't commit to making more aggressive plays, and that gave me more draw steps. Some percentage of the time, that game I would then win because I did draw the stock up into the things I needed to take over the game. And I think it's just important to remember that is out there, and when you feel stagnant, especially, if you're focusing on your technical play and you still feel like sometimes the game is just getting away from you, that's, I think, the level up that I've been working on the most, is thinking about, when I think through this, am I thinking through, is my opponent going to respect this? Does it make sense for them to call? Does it make sense for them to like let me get away with this or not? Can they afford to or not? And taking advantage of those opportunities in front of me as well.
I think one thing that I learned on my free-to-play account, where I like was playing a lot of mono red the last month and a half, is actually has to do with this because of Monstrous Rage. And you actually kind of have to pretend like you have Monstrous Rage when you don't, in order to get a lot of wins with mono red, because it's very clear when you don't have it if you don't play like you have it. And that's a weird thing that I don't know that I've ever had to deal with before. Like, because of the nature of that specific card, you actually, I think, are forced in a lot of situations to bluff. I don't know that I've been forced to bluff before, Abe. Like, I don't know that that's happened. I have a question for you, though. With this, are you familiar with like the PV LSV make them have it conversation? Around like,
yes.
Do you feel like, I'm just curious, like, how does that fit into that on the counter play of this?
Well, I think the idea of just making them have it is, it runs the idea that rather than engaging in this level of the playing field, right, in altering your play to try to capture advantages that might be out there, you're better off just saying, what are the cards, like, how do the cards turn over, right? We might as well be playing with our hands face up. I'm not going to do anything dishonest. I'm just going to play honestly. And that does get pretty far. But I think that once, right, if you're really trying to push for those extra, that extra 0.5%, 1% in win rate that the best players out there get, and we talk about people who are like true experts and specialists in what they do and the decks they play, I think a part of that comes from people who know how to get away with this. They know what their opponent is thinking about, and they know what their start, what the cards they've played so far is making the opponent feel and think about the game, and then they're able to take advantage of that. They're not leaving any of those opportunities on the table because they just know that, of course, I'm going to get to make this attack, right? Of course, I'm going to get to attack my Soulscar Mage into your 4/4. You would never block there because I would never make that attack if I didn't have it. And maybe you block every time there, but I have it enough of the time that you'll learn not to, right? There's opportunity there.
It's exactly what I was just saying with Monstrous Rage, right? Like, it's like, yeah, I'm going to attack. Like, you can't block because, like, if I have Monstrous Rage, you get blown out. So,
yeah, Monstrous Rage, I'd say, is a particularly tricky one, though, because it's so strong that often, like, you're there. It's pretty either like, I guess I'm just making you have it because otherwise I lose, or, if you have it, I lose no matter what. So they can't any longer, like, afford to. But, no, I mean, this whole idea, and I forgot to mention this during the bulk of the topic, but this whole idea came from, and it's something I've been working with since I was in college. I actually learned in my intro to game theory class of just how to, like, break down these specific kinds of scenarios into these, like, outcomes and kind of weighing them. And I think it's something that I want to get back into more and have been trying to get back into more. And I think as a listener, if you're wondering, like, how do I apply this? I would just say start by looking at all of your decisions in your game in that way and getting used to thinking about those 4 outcomes, right? Like, do it and have it, don't do it, have it, don't do it, don't have it, and don't do it, have it, right? So, like, if you break down to those four options, like, am I making the play or am I not, and do I have it or do I don't, and how does the game play out? You start weighing which one looks best for you. It makes it 4 times the work, but you start to make, you get in the habit of building that and thinking about all of the decisions that way, so that you can take advantage of what's out there.
Somebody leave a comment, like, break down what Abe just said in the comments. Is like,
just draw it in a picture. You can do it on a napkin. It's just 4 quadrants.
I loved this episode. This was fun. Mason, do you have anything to add to Abe's, or you ready to wrap up?
No, I was just gonna say that, like, I think it's a really, like, hard thing that takes a long time, right? And I just want to encourage listeners, like, you're not supposed to get this overnight, right? Like, Abe's talked about working on this for a long time. I think that's just an important thing to note, that, like, you're going to pick this up, you're going to start trying to think about these things or doing it. And the expectation is not that you will have it down, in a month, right? Like, it is going to be a thing that you're going to have to think a lot about and maybe even constantly think about in most cases. So just, I think one thing I've really come to appreciate is, like, I think some listeners expect themselves to, like, speed through Magic or speed through learning these sort of things. And, even if, like, speedy to them is like 3 months, they're like, oh, that should be more than enough. But if they're not spending, a lot of time on it, or the topic of / task is particularly hard, it could take a lot longer than that. And I just think it's important to, like, highlight that part of what Abe said of, like, this is not something that, he would expect to get down overnight. So,
oh yeah, definitely not. I would say, even like I said, this has been on my inventory for like 4 years, and I've probably played like 6 or 7 games of Magic that have taught me about how to get better at this and identifying this and this exact aspect of the game over those 4 years. I can think of them, they stand in my head clear as day because they were so interesting to me, the way that the games played out. And really, it was like games where I was forced to represent that I have it and couldn't afford to get off of it. And my opponent read that, right? I was able to play against someone who I knew could figure out that's what was going on. That then I had to think about, okay, what if I did that when I didn't have it? And still, like, that opportunity comes up so rarely for me. And for some people, it's more natural, but that's why I think it's important to practice the framework and the process of how you're thinking about the problems in front of you, because I know that by doing that and standardizing that for myself, it's making me better at it now, right? But that's been a 4-year journey in Magic for me, in that, and continues to be one that I expect will go on beyond that. Magic is such deep game. Definitely don't expect that of yourself, in tomorrow or at your RCQ next week.
I love it, man. All right, that is going to do it for the Triple Training Grounds. If you love it, don't forget to check out the Patreon and support us that way. Go to patreon.com/ccmtg. Every week on the show, we give a shout out to our newest Patreon. And if you are a patron of $5 or more, you get access to the Patreon question. This week is from Anon. Why are we hiding ourselves? If the three co-hosts battle in non-Magic TCGs, Pokemon, One Piece, and Hearthstone, for example, who would win? I have an opinion on this because Mason literally didn't you go like nationals in one?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't play those games, but Abe was very good at Force Well. Listen, you're cooked. That's what it comes down to. You're
wow.
Out. It's Abe
I have a winning record in Pokemon TCG tournaments.
So does like a 5-year-old.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't know how much
I would say
stuff I play.
Abe Riftbound coming out soon. I'll meet you in Atlanta.
See, the thing with Riftbound is that I have no idea anything about League, so I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. I don't need to. It's a card game is the biggest lie I've ever heard.
Some people said that's what people said about TFT, and I literally couldn't figure out the characters because they were all. That's.
It wasn't that big a deal.
It was a big deal.
Lots of the best TFT players never played League.
Yeah, but they also learned all of anyone who played League or knew things about League had a leg up by knowing what the characters did.
Yeah, I agree.
So listen, you got time to learn. October's coming. You got plenty of time. That's like 2 months, maybe even 3, depending on how you look at it.
For what it's worth, I also thought I was cooked to answer the question. I also was like, I'm losing this. Like, I also was.
Yeah, yeah, Spencer. I see your winning record in Pokemon tournaments and raise you 2-time Force of Will TCG state champion and Grand Prix top 4 competitor. In a game that I only played those events and one other store event. That was it. That game was sick.
Yeah, I knew the second I saw this question. I was like, well, I'm out. I don't even know how One Piece works. Like,
One Piece is pretty interesting.
Some of my best friends play it. They say it's the best TCG like that there is. Like
that's not surprising. It's an incredibly spiky game, and a lot of your best friends are incredibly spiky. Like Matt Killing, for example.
Yeah,
I can see him loving One Piece.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Yeah. That game's casual appeal is it's the One Piece card game. And that's about it. Oh my goodness.
All right, so who wins between you two?
We're gonna battle out in Atlanta. We'll let you know.
We are not going to battle in Atlanta. That is such a losing proposition.
Why? You get to hang out in Atlanta?
Well, hold on. The Gathering is a sick proposition.
They call it the bounding in that game.
See, I don't even know.
Was that a TFT reference? But
no, the game's called Riftbound.
Oh,
yeah,
Rift the Bounding.
Yeah, like you're rift bound, like you're inbound to the rift.
Do you know what's so funny? Is I played OG Dota, like when it was like a mod.
Mm-hmm.
I played it, like before Dota was Dota. I actually played it like a lot.
Yeah, that's why it's a series. That's why people like you is why the league is so big. People played it a lot.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, if you want to ask questions like that, head over to patreon.com/ccmtg. You can check out our sponsors. You got Untapped.gg. I already mentioned in this episode. They are the best arena deck tracker on the planet, as well as Mana Traders. You can use the code CCMTG for this month to get to get the best rental service that there is. I did talk to. Speaking of which, I just talked to Matt Klein this week. We're gonna bring back Clash finally. After he's been like a Halo gamer, guys, and he's ready to come back into the CCPG fold and make those videos. You can also check out the swag store. Use the link in the description. But the point of the show is always improving. We want to be getting better every week. Trying our best to be improving. Mason, what did you do to improve at Magic or Life in general this week?
Yeah, my always improving moment really comes from like just getting it. Like I talked about this recently a good bit, but I've been trying to like really focus on it. So it's sort of been like my main thing in all regards. But like just getting the stuff done that needs to get done, um, and like making sure it's like okay, like I need to get the oil changed on my car, and I need to go to the grocery store, and I need to where I want to work out today. And it's like okay, prioritizing those things, making sure that they are top of the list. And it's like yeah, I'd love to hang out with my friends on Discord or play games or do something, but I got to get this stuff done first. Or being like, yeah, you know what? It doesn't make much sense to go and get my oil change / go to the grocery store right now because it's the middle of lunch traffic. I'm going to, play a game and then I'll go back and do that, afterwards. But just making sure I'm on top of that kind of stuff. I know I've talked a lot about it recently, but it's really been like a big pivotal point for me in trying to really like ingrain that into my day to day and like make that a thing that I'm not having to think about. And I know that sounds silly to some, but it can be very easy to drop the ball and that kind of stuff. And so I'm just trying to really make sure that I'm making a habit out of it.
I think that being mindful of those type of things is something that we could all do better, and like making it a priority is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. What about you, Spencer? What's your always improving moment this week?
This week's kind of hard. I got laid off last Thursday, which I knew was coming. Like it was a zero surprise layoff. The last 3 meetings with my boss, I was like, all right, so when are we doing this? He's like, I don't know. And I was like, all right, well, you just let me know. And so for me, like this week has been about, I guess really the last 5 days has been about like making sure that I stay positive, stay active. Yeah, I got all of the, like, for example, like I kind of like you, I like did all my unemployment stuff the next day. Like I got it all done. I applied for 20 jobs in 3 days. I kind of just did it. Like I didn't let things upset me. I just moved forward. And I think about kind of Magic that way sometimes. We had a conversation in the Discord not that long about like how do you bounce back from a bad match or a punt or things like that. And I think that one thing that Magic did teach me is to do this, of just like, okay, well this bad thing happened. What's the next step? Like what do we do to move forward? And I really have over the last kind of 5 days tried to encapsulate that and just move forward. So
love it.
Thank you. Abe?
Yeah, my always improvement this week has come from the last couple weeks of testing with Sanctum of All, and that really has been, I can't go into too many specifics about like individual things I'm learning in games or things like that, just because I want to be able to tell the story, and I can't tell the story till after the event. But just in general has been pushing myself to just be involved and be engaged and like resist what I think is a pretty natural urge of mine to just like lurk and take in information, but to like get my hands dirty and be like out there playing matches, trying ideas. And even if I don't necessarily have ideas that I'm looking to iterate on, like being there and like making the sacrifice in other parts of my life to prioritize the time and just doing it, making it as much of a priority as I feel like I need it to be, and as much as I feel like I feel responsible to my team. They I know that they'll understand I can give what I can give, but I also know that for myself it's a goal of mine. This even like continued into I organized like an in-person draft event with a bunch of the strong drafters that I know in my area, like a lot of PT players, just getting like actual first impressions of drafting 8-man pods of Final Fantasy, and like letting everyone know beforehand, like, hey, I want to make sure, because I know a lot of people are interested in doing this, but like I want to make sure that like this is my priority, and advocating for like I want to make sure we're playing the best games we can. We have people who are most prepared. I have an expectation of everyone who's showing up that you're like have an understanding of the set coming in. You've read it over. You've like you know the archetypes at the very minimum. Like, you are here to try to do your best, and if you want to just hang out, we'll bring things to just hang out. We're gonna have more than 8 people showing up because we had a lot of interest, but like, I really want to make sure, no hard feelings, but like, I'm being open about the fact, like, I've made these commitments, I've made these sacrifices, and I'm doing things in a way differently than like what I would normally do, where I can be pretty easygoing and it's all on me. And like, actually making it clear and making an expectation so that that could be the case. So
I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. I remember like Oasis Games PT draft days where like Oasis just like, it's okay, we're opening product, but like 3 people are qualified to the Pro Tour, and so rather than just opening product, we're gonna do drafts, and like we invited all the best players, and like, I'm so jealous, Abe. Like, I'm just reminiscing of the good old days, and you just got me.
And I gotta say, by the 3rd draft of the day, when you already started in the afternoon and you're like drafting into the night, I mean, you can't beat that atmosphere. You're really, the crying, laughing at the table draft it's the biggest train wreck I've drafted in a while, and probably should have slowed down and focused a little bit more, but I don't know if I had it in me after also working that morning. But yeah, I mean, it's been, and really just proto testing, I've felt a lot of opportunity for growth, and I'm really taking it in. I'm really grateful for it. I'm excited to talk about it more after the event. But yeah, it's great. I mean, Magic's so good.
When you beat Jason in the finals, are we gonna invite them on the show?
I mean, yeah, I can invite them on the show whenever.
Yeah, I mean, once you beat them in the finals, of course. So, no pressure. No pressure. That is going to do it for this week. If you want to join the conversation, hear more about Pro Tour testing, or whatever, you can head on to the Patreon Discord. Go to patreon.com/ccmtg. Join the Constructive Criticism Patreon there at $5 or more, as well as go to the public Discord, link in the show notes. And then you can leave a comment. Let us know what you thought of this episode, what we can do for future episodes. I enjoyed my time with you guys today. It's good to know, Mason, that you're a zebra supporter. I think that's the most important thing that we learned from this episode is, you respect the zebra. And we'll see y'all next time with a brand new episode of Constructive. Magic.